So we regain the all-time high by end of 2024, and that's when the real fun starts, right? That's when the real bull market starts. And so my mental model for where we could go, I think we're going to go somewhere between, $750,000 to $1 million in Bitcoin on the upside.
What's going on, guys? K-Dub here with another episode of Crypto Zombie. Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're having a great day today. Now, if we have a look at the price of Bitcoin, we can actually see right here that we did in fact retest this resistance right here, okay, right here, as support. So this is exactly what we were talking about. Waiting yesterday, people were worried about the price coming down, and we said that it was most likely to have a retest. Now, at the same time, though, we still have the DXY pumping, although the DXY could potentially be hitting some levels. Will it actually get back up to the 110, or are we now looking for a retrace all the way back down? Because if we fall back down on the DXY, we know that inverse usually tends to be good for Bitcoin. But in today's video, I want to almost stress a sense of urgency, because we are entering a very pivotal moment in the Bitcoin price action. Now, we of course have these doom and gloomers that are calling for 60% crashes for Bitcoin, right? That's still a thing. People are still saying that's possible if we do get a recession and everything else. But at the same time, we have more mounting evidence of why it may turn out that people will inevitably have no choice but to turn to things like Bitcoin. In fact, if you have seen what the US just did recently, your mind is going to be blown. So today we're going to do a little bit of devil's advocate. Of course, you guys know I'm massively bullish. I still think we're going to see $1 million Bitcoin in our lifetime. But when you see some of these predictions, some people are calling for these crazy levels even sooner than most of us could have even imagined. So we're going to have a look at both of this, and I want you to stick to the end of the video because I have a clip that I want to play you, and you have to ask yourself, would you actually be prepared if that situation was to play out? So if that sounds good to you, you know what to do. If you're not subscribed, we're going to try to get to this video quick, although you know that usually never happens. But let's dive in. Let's have a look at what's going on. So I do just want to start with some of the major topics right here, and that being the fact that the US has added in one single day $275 billion. That is essentially half of the market cap of Bitcoin. That is incredible. That's roughly equivalent to about 10 million Bitcoin if that were the case. So just think about that. Think about what the US is doing right now, okay? So that is number one. Number two is that we're also seeing some of this shift, right? For example, Mitchell Hoddle points out the fact that on average over the past 30 days, we've had about 550,000 new Bitcoin addresses. This is absolutely unprecedented. We really haven't seen things this crazy in a while. So, if you're looking at some on-chain activity, why are all these addresses being created? Are people looking to finally start scooping up Bitcoin? Are these just some of the players that have already been in it? Well, talking about the catalyst, and then I got a few clips I want to play you guys. Like Sven Hendrick pointed out, and I know I showed you this chart the other day, but we have soaring yields. He says partially driven by insatiable debt issuance by the U.S. Treasury. So the Fed may either be forced to pause QT or outright start becoming a buyer of U.S. debt again. So obviously, it's not really looking good, although we have seen the dollar continue to strengthen, right, again, against these other currencies. At the same time, the situation doesn't look quite well. In fact, Arthur Hayes is one of those that are screaming for the bullish narrative right now for Bitcoin. He explains quite simply that due to the leverage and nonlinear risks embedded in banks' portfolios, they will be seeing bonds or paying fixed on IRS as rates rise. More selling begets more selling, which is no bueno for bond prices. However, the faster this bear steepener rises, the faster someone goes belly up, the faster everyone recognizes that there is no way out other than money printing to save government markets, the faster we get back to the crypto bull market, all right? And he was over here on Impact Theory, and he was explaining how he thinks that Bitcoin, and this is crazy, could potentially hit $750,000 or more by 2026.
So I have to ask, where do you think Bitcoin is going? Is this something that breaks 100,000? Is this something that breaks 1 million? Is Michael Saylor going to be a hero or the world's biggest L? What do you think?
So my working model is that, we're going to continue chopping around 25, 20, 30,000 this year. As we get to some sort of financial disturbance and people recognize that real rates are negative, if government they're growing, if the economy is growing at a nominal rate of 10%, but I'm only getting 5%, 6%, even though it's high, people are on the margin going to start buying other stuff, crypto being one of those things. So coming into 2024, either we get a financial crisis, rates go to zero, or we keep raising rates, but not as fast as governments are spending money because they're just trying to keep people doing things, and the rates are negative. That we get to crypto around 70,000 by the end of 2024, and that's a combination of the crypto halving event, right? Maybe there's going to be a few ETFs launched by large asset managers in the U.S. and Europe and China, or maybe Hong Kong, to be specific. So we regain the all-time high by the end of 2024, and that's when the real fun starts, right? That's when the real bull market starts. And so my mental model for where we could go, I think we're going to go somewhere between $750,000 to $1 million in Bitcoin on the upside, right? And we're going to, whatever the level is, there's gonna be a round number everyone's gonna be focusing on. I guess like Bitcoin hit 69,999, didn't hit 70,000, and then it's gonna go and just crash, 75, 80, 90%, whatever it is, right? Doesn't matter. But yeah, so my upside target-ish is sort of the $750,000 $1 million level, 2026 time frame, just because, again, I believe this is going to be the largest market in bull market in financial assets we have ever seen in human history.
So again, could price actually go lower for Bitcoin? Yes, of course it could. But when you consider the upside potential versus the downside risk, again, everyone asking, is now a good time to buy? Well, I can't tell you what to do, but I think that what we're seeing is speaking volumes. For example, we have the SEC saying, they're saying that they will approve a spot Bitcoin ETF within the next 3 to 6 months. Now, this is according to Stephen Schoenfield, a former BlackRock managing director. So he actually used to be a part of BlackRock. He's also predicting an estimated inflow of up to $200 billion to follow the ETF approval, right? So that is a little bit less than 50% of the overall market cap of Bitcoin right now. But remember, market cap is a lie, because really all it is essentially the last price versus the circulating supply, right? And when we have these liquidity crunches and we have less and less Bitcoin on exchange and more USDT, Tether, USDC stablecoins entering the exchange, that is going to absorb that shock, right? So could we see that crunch to the upside? Yes, if we did get the dump to the downside, I wouldn't be surprised to see a lot of people waiting to scoop that up. So this guy is now the CEO of Market Vectors. He was talking over on a panel, and also at the event was another ex-BlackRock director, Martin Bednall. And before the prediction, he speculated that the SEC would most likely approve all applications simultaneously. He thinks the regulator would not want to give any organization a first mover advantage. So can you imagine what would happen if we just had all of them approved at once? And remember, even though we know BlackRock is truly in control of this, I don't care what anybody says, Gary is basically BlackRock's you-know-what, rhymes with a witch. But essentially, what we're seeing is that this could be massive for all of this capital, right? Over $15 trillion, and we've gone over what just 1% of that could do. But it's not even just the ETF. It's the shift in the sentiment overall. We had never seen Bitcoin discussed in politics before. That was never even a topic. It would be a dream to see a presidential election in which Bitcoin was a topic. And now you have presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy basically saying that he's going to end the current White House war on Bitcoin if elected.
I'm going to make sure that that Bitcoin is protected, that people can keep their own wallets, that the current White House war on Bitcoin will be over, that transactions will be protected and encouraged. And I'll look ultimately at treating it as a currency rather than a commodity.
Right.
Particularly for smaller Bitcoin owners, for transactions owners. I don't want to provide a windfall for the billionaires who accumulated Bitcoin, but I think smaller actors and transactions, that their transactions should be able to to change currencies the same way that when you go to Canada and you're using a Canadian dollar, you ought to be able to come to the United States without And if there's some appreciation in the Canadian dollar, you shouldn't have to pay for it in tax.
So again, more and more people are beginning to wake up to the power of Bitcoin. He actually says that it should be like a currency, right? If I swap out my currency to euros or something and the euro goes up in the time that I'm on vacation, when I come back, do I owe taxes on that? No, it's a currency conversion, right? And people are realizing that all of these are trash, these bonds, the treasuries, everything is really just collapsing. And that's actually why the DXY is pumping, because really it's comparative to the other currencies. So like, Kinetic Finance points out, people are waking up to Bitcoin.
A lot of people say that Bitcoin has no intrinsic value, and that's why they don't touch it. But think about the most valuable thing in the room with you right now. Is it a painting, a computer, the phone you're watching this video on? No, it's oxygen. Nothing else could possibly be more valuable than the air keeping you alive second to second. But it's also abundant and free, which is why you don't really think about it. Similarly, if you were offered a Rolex or a bottle of water right now, you'd probably pick the Rolex. But if you were stranded in the middle of the Sahara Desert, you'd sure as hell pick the water. Point is, value is subjective to the individual. Bitcoin, along with all forms of money, derives subjective value from the soundness of its properties. Unlike every other type of money on Earth, all of these properties are secured in Bitcoin by the laws of mathematics, consensus, and engineering. So maybe the more important issue is, what exactly is securing the value of these?
But then we have these doom and glooms, right? For example, Mike McClone, which is actually a Bitcoin bull long term, he's admitted that. He's saying that declining Bitcoin has preceded Fed pivots. The bottom line for Bitcoin at the start of Q4, maybe that liquidity remains negative. He even goes on as far as to say that he could still see a 60% correction for Bitcoin. Now, is that actually possible? Well, if we have a look over here at what's been going on, we do notice that Bitcoin is still stuck between this 100 and 200 daily moving average like a sandwich. Every time it falls below, it gets supported. Every time it breaks above, it, gets pushed to the downside. But inevitably, we are still having, this double top ultimately for now, and we haven't been able to break higher than that. So this is why I want to actually give a shout out to Wrecked Capital. Now, I've been following this guy for quite some time over on Twitter, recently been checking out his YouTube videos a little bit more, and this is a very serious breakdown. Now, this isn't doom and gloom. He just points out a very interesting and maybe potentially short-term, somewhat concerning fractal. And I just want to play this clip, and you have to ask yourself, if this actually was to happen to Bitcoin, would you be prepared? Because I know we say, oh, this is the last chance, but what if this actually was the last chance? Would this shake you out? What would you do in this situation? Do you think that this could actually happen?
Is it really that simple? We're currently seeing a potential repeat of 2019 in terms of the macro range, not only just that, but also the bearish fractal developing in this range, really just following it, scarily accurate for the time being. And it's not just that, it's also the 2021 potential bearish fractal that we're seeing also play out. Let's talk about it in today's video. Subscribe to the channel for more videos like this in the future. Like the content if you like this video, and let's dive right into it. So we're seeing that this bearish fractal is one that's repeating in 2023, so the pre-halving year, just like in 2019, which was also a pre-halving year. Potentially, we're seeing this macro range also developing here, very similar to what we're seeing right now. The bearish fractal really just also mimicking the 2021 bull market phase as well. We just see a double top which forms, fakes out traders to form a relief rally into a lower high before losing the base of that fractal, turning it into a resistance before downside continuation. And what if we were to see that play out in this cycle right now? So we're currently seeing this relief rally right now. If we reject from these prices to form that lower high, we could drop back into 25, 26K, lose that level as a support, rebound from 23, 24, back into 26 to turn it into resistance before seeing trend continuation towards the downside to form our final bottom. And where could that final bottom occur? Well, it could be in the 20K region. Roughly speaking, I don't expect a crash of this magnitude like we saw, because this was a black swan event, but we don't even need such a crash. As you can see, if we took this like for like, the magnitude would get us to 11K, and I don't think that's going to be possible. I feel like we would get a lesser retracement and not even that much. I feel like 20k is a sensible level. We're not going to get a black swan event, and if a black swan occurs, I still feel like we would still remain in this macro range, but not actually revisit this bear market bottom region. We'd probably form a higher low of some sort, somewhere like this in the 20k region, maybe slightly sub 20k, but generally speaking, still maintaining this range, never to revisit 15,500. I think that was the bottom, and I think we won't revisit that in the same way that we didn't get back into this 3k region in 2018, but we got quite close to it with a downside wick just to form a higher low. Same thing is probably going to happen in this cycle. So the bearish fractal that we're seeing across time, 2023, 2019, but also 2021, this bearish fractal, if it plays out, we're going to drop lower inside this range to look for a 20k region for support. And that's really what this sort of triangular market structure is even suggesting right now. The lower high right over here, the macro higher low, we haven't revisited this macro higher low as a support like we did in the previous cycle. 1, 2, 3 touches, 1, 2, and the third touch seems to be missing. The next 200 days going into the halving, maybe even less, the next 140 days going into the halving are going to be quite pivotal in securing a potential higher low here. Loads of people are actually going to get very scared and uncertain and doubtful once we do get to those 20k levels. So it's important that if this retrace does happen, not to belong to that psychology, to really think of it as a bargain buying opportunity, because it truly is going to be a bargain buying opportunity, because post halving we tend to see tremendous continuation towards the upside. So if we just do that, it's not going to be the same magnitude, but definitely something to really look forward to as we go into new all-time highs months after the halving event.
So again, shout out to Rec Capital for that, guys. If you haven't checked his channel out, go check him out. Really awesome analysis. So let's dive in and have a look at what we're seeing here on the chart. So ultimately, yes, Bitcoin is still dancing around, still going sideways. We did get that buy signal on the hash ribbon, but as you guys can see, what could potentially be happening right here is we could be looking for this death cross potentially to happen on the weekly, right? We're seeing a lot of pressure on the 200 daily, which is in fact lining up with the 200 weekly. So that is a lot of pressure from the upside. Now, obviously, if we were to break this level, right, sort of get above this $30,000 area, that would put us back into our blue zone. We're also still holding above the EMA ribbon, right? So we haven't had that flip on the ribbon yet. Obviously, I'll let you know if we see anything. But the big concern is this area right here, right? We have a lot of support that held us all the way through here, way back from December of 2020 all the way to June of 2022. So that's about 2 straight years, okay? And you can see, we come up here, we get rejected. We come up here, we get rejected. Now we're getting rejected well, not getting rejected, but we haven't been able to break above this lower end of the band. Now, just keep in mind, guys, once we break and hold above this $30,000 to $32,000 area, you could see right here, there really isn't much volume range to really hold us down. That could literally send Bitcoin instantly up to 37,000. Now, of course, this is assuming that we have that breakout immediately, but again, that puts our price target anywhere between sort of that 60,000 to even 47,000 if you want to count it on the retest. So is that chance of, you know, a double bottom like this? We come up, we come back down, maybe we don't go as low, maybe we come down to about, 17. Most likely, I say that we would sort of, again, be stopped out right here. Right here, we have this massive interest at around $20,000. So again, could a double bottom be in play? Sure, it's possible. We are consolidating here on the CME futures, and we were able to close this gap. So we don't have any gaps except for this one down here. If you still consider this to be a gap, that would be around 20,300. So again, we were iffy on this one. I wasn't sure if that gap counted or not, but if you do think that Rect Capital situation could play out, then there is that possibility maybe of retesting the $20,000 area. Of course, right now, as of what we're doing right here, the lower time frames, we are putting in higher highs, we are putting in higher lows. Look at a little bit of the midterm, and we are on a downtrend. So we do want to break out of this structure. Again, if you guys do want to learn how to trade, by the way, make sure that you guys check the tutorials popping up right here above. There's over $66,000 in bonuses, and of course, remember, everything is free on this channel. We do have tons of educational videos and lots of bonuses if you guys are interested. But as you can see, again, we're being held down by this. But if we do look at the larger picture, I have showed you in the past that once you break these downtrends and you flip them as support, you tend to go on these big rallies, right? We did the same thing here. We had this downtrend, we flipped it as support, we went on a major rally, and you can see, what are we doing right now? We had this major downtrend, and technically we are attempting to potentially flip this as support, right? So there are a lot of positives for Bitcoin, and I still think that even if we do have this potential doom and gloom, double bottom test, worst case scenario, I think it's just going to be an opportunity to just accumulate Bitcoin at these lower levels again. I'm not envisioning a $10,000, $15,000 Bitcoin. Even going below 23 is questionable, but we are still also being supported, by the way, by this exponential 21 moving average. So as long as this long-term trend holds and we don't break it, then I think that that's a possibility. So again, going back to something that we did here, this was the original trend, this yellow trend right here, right? So we've had those multiple tests, like Rec Capital explained, and we did have the multiple touches, and we did close here. Now, this is a trend line that I've had on my channel for, months and months and months. If you've been following this to me is sort of the make or break, and we have not fallen below that yet. And even if we were to fall directly down to that level today, that would put Bitcoin at around 21,600. So again, if we had a similar situation, of course, this was a black swan event, but if we did have a similar situation, get rejected, break down here or something like that, what would you see? Some kind of scam wick down here to the bottom and then instantly get bought back up, right? So by the end of the week, we'd be back above the 26,000, a lot, crazy volatility. Lots of people would probably panic sell. That would then put in the double bottom and we would continue moving to the upside. So that's it for me, guys. Thank you so much for coming back to the channel. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. I just wanted to play a little bit of both sides, and sometimes I get a lot of comments that I'm a little too bullish, so I did want to show an honest possibility of a repeat of what we saw during the COVID crash. But again, that wasn't the end of Bitcoin. It wasn't crashing down to zero. All it was a very quick weekly wick to the downside, and really seriously just massive opportunity. And it was in fact the last opportunity to accumulate at those levels. Bitcoin has never gone back to those levels again. So if you are in the camp that we have to go lower, you are in that bearish sentiment like I've been hearing people talk about literally since the bottom, even though Bitcoin is still up over 65%. Gold is actually negative on the year. Yesterday, it just dipped below what it opened up on January 2nd, 1st, whatever. So yeah, Bitcoin kind of has been the play if you are looking on the annual basis. So that's it again for me. Thank you for coming back. Please, in the comments, let me know what you think. Are you bullish, bearish, neutral? Are you buying? Are you selling? What's everybody doing out there? I am very interested. I'd like to know. Make sure you guys follow me over on Twitter, X, for more updates. And that is it for me. If you do want to learn how to trade, make sure you watch these videos popping up right here, right now. Until next time, stay crypto. And of course, peace out.